Caitlin Clark did not step onto that Final Four Fan Fest stage looking like someone easing her way back into the spotlight. She looked like someone who had been waiting for that exact moment. And the second she started talking, you could feel why the crowd was reacting the way it did. This was not the careful, polished version of Clark, who gives you the standard athlete answers and moves on. This was a more open version, a more direct version, and honestly, maybe the clearest look yet at how she sees herself, her team, and the future she wants in Indiana. That is what made the whole thing hit so hard. People came in expecting a nice public appearance, maybe a few safe answers about recovery, teammates, and getting back on the court. What they got instead was Clark talking like someone who already knows exactly what she wants the next stage of her career to look like. She spoke about the fever, about what the fans mean to her, about how she was raised, about the habits that keep her sharp. And then she said the part that sent the room into another gear. She did not say she wants to win a championship one day. She said she wants to win a few championships with the Indiana Fever. And that word matters. A few, not one, not maybe, not if everything breaks right. A few. She said it like it was already sitting in her head as the standard, not the dream. That is a completely different level of confidence. And coming off an injury layoff, it felt even louder. The context made it even more powerful. There had been so much noise around her absence. People were debating whether Indiana had learned to function without her, whether the pressure around the Fever had become too intense, whether the injury changed anything mentally, and whether she would come back more cautious. None of that energy showed up in her. She did not sound hesitant. She did not sound shaken. If anything, she sounded more certain. Almost like being away from the game only made her clearer about what she wants from it. When she talked about returning to Indiana, there was no fake drama in it. It felt honest. She basically described coming back to basketball the way someone talks about getting something back that they did not fully appreciate until it was gone. That kind of honesty is rare because most athletes are trained to smooth everything out in public. Clark did not do that. She made it feel personal without making it theatrical, and the crowd connected with it immediately. One of the most revealing parts of the conversation was how she talked about Indiana itself. She made it clear that this was where she wanted to be from the beginning. That matters because it tells you this is not just a franchise she landed on by chance and decided to make the best of. In her mind, this was always a fit. She even talked about how different the Fever environment looks now compared to what it had been before she got there. Her teammates had told her stories about how quiet things used to feel, how little energy there was around the arena compared to now. And Clark knows exactly what changed. She did not say it arrogantly. That is part of what made it work. She said it like someone who understands the before and after without needing to oversell it. People are not just buying tickets anymore because it is something to do. They are showing up because they care. They are loud. They are locked in. They are emotionally invested. That is a huge difference. And when Clark said that, it felt like she was speaking to something deeper than attendance. She was talking about the Fever becoming an event, becoming a team that people feel connected to, and she knows she is at the center of that shift. That part of the conversation also highlighted something else people sometimes forget about her. Clark is fully aware of the impact she has had, but she does not seem overwhelmed by it. She understands it, she respects it, but she does not move like someone crushed by it. Jalen Rose even tried to pull her into talking about the pressure that comes with being the player every camera follows, every crowd reacts to, every opponent circles. Clark's answer was basically that this is not new to her. She has been living in that kind of attention since college. So for her, the pressure is not some dramatic new chapter. It is the same pressure in a different jersey. That tells you a lot about why she is able to stay so steady in public. She is used to it. She knows what it feels like to be the focal point. She knows what it feels like when people are waiting for you to say the wrong thing, play the wrong game, or crack under the expectations. And instead of pretending none of that exists, she seems to have built a routine around not letting it move her too much. A big part of that clearly goes back to how she was raised. When Rose asked her about mentors, she did not give the easy answer. She did not pick one big famous name and turn it into a neat little story. She talked about coaches, teammates, family, and especially her dad. And the way she described him was important. He was not just her dad. He was also her coach. That means she did not have the luxury of going home and complaining about practice to someone sympathetic. The person holding her accountable was right there at dinner too. That kind of environment shapes a player in a very specific way. It kills excuses early. You could tell that is where a lot of her discipline comes from. Not from one inspirational speech, not from one breakthrough season, but from years of being held to a standard at practice and then going home to the same standard again. She basically said she was raised to understand that basketball was never supposed to be everything. School mattered. Taking care of yourself mattered. Getting along with family mattered. That perspective is probably a huge reason she handles the spotlight the way she does now. When you are raised to see basketball as part of life, not the whole thing, it becomes easier to keep your head when the outside world turns every game into a national event. She also gave real credit to teammates, which probably says as much about her as anything else in the panel. She talked about captains and teammates from earlier stages of her career as people who helped shape how she leads now. That stood out because a lot of stars talk about leadership like it is something they naturally had from the beginning. Clark described it more honestly. She learned from watching other people do it first. She learned what it looks like to be demanding without being selfish. She learned how to be fierce and still be someone teammates trust. That is not always an easy balance, especially for a player with her profile, but it is obviously something she thinks about. And that connects directly to how she talks about the Fever now. She mentioned Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Sophie Cunningham not like names on a roster, but like people she is still learning from. That is important because it shows her mindset inside the team, even with all the attention on her. She is not acting like she has already figured everything out and everyone else is just orbiting around her. She seems to genuinely value what those players bring and what they teach her. That kind of humility, especially from a player with her level of influence, is part of why teammates seem comfortable around her. The event also had one of those moments that says more about a person than any prepared answer ever could. A young fan got brought up onto the stage while everything was still going on, and Clark did not freeze or wait for someone to guide her through it. She just turned and handled it naturally. She spoke to him, asked questions, took a picture, made him feel comfortable, and kept the energy light. The crowd loved it because it did not feel staged at all. It felt like Clark being Clark, calm, warm, and fully present in the moment. That tied into another part of the conversation, where she talked about what sports can do for kids beyond just turning them into athletes. Clark spoke about basketball and other sports teaching discipline, time management, healthy habits, and how to keep showing up when things are hard. And again, she did not make it sound like a motivational poster. She made it sound practical. Like these are the things sports actually taught her in real life. And these are the things that still matter now that basketball is her job. Her health habits were another part of the panel that made people pay attention because she was so matter-of-fact about them. She talked about cutting out fast food, staying hydrated, and taking care of her body without making it sound dramatic. It was not framed like some huge sacrifice. It was more like, this is a standard now. And if you want a certain level of performance, certain choices stop being optional. That kind of answer fits with everything else she said. Discipline for her does not sound emotional. It sounds routine. It sounds built into the day-to-day. She also mentioned that taking care of your mind can matter just as much as taking care of your body. And that may be one of the most telling things she said all afternoon. She talked about needing ways to step away from basketball, to still be active but not consumed by the same thing every second. Golf, being outside, just getting away from the nonstop demands. That is the kind of answer you usually hear from players who have already learned the hard way that talent alone is not enough to survive professionally. Clark is only in her 20s, but she already sounds like someone who understands that balance is not soft. It is necessary. Then there was the more personal side, which helped lighten the whole room. When she got asked about hobbies, she admitted she honestly likes chilling on the couch. That kind of answer is funny because it is so normal, especially coming from someone who gets talked about like a nonstop machine. She also joked about thinking she is a chef even though she basically admitted she is not actually cooking for anybody. It made her feel more real, which is probably why people connected to it so quickly. The biggest stars are usually the ones people think they know, and moments like that help build that connection. But everything in the panel was clearly building toward the same place. And once Rose finally asked her what she still wants to accomplish, Clark did not hesitate. She said championships. Then she made it even clearer. A few championships. With Indiana. And the way she said it is why the moment traveled so fast. There was no safe athlete language around it. No talk about staying present, taking it one season at a time, or respecting the process before mentioning the goal. She just said it. That is why it felt almost like a warning to the rest of the league. Not because she was trying to be flashy, but because she sounded completely serious. She sees where Indiana is going. She sees the free agency decisions. She sees the roster direction. She sees the opportunity. And most importantly, she sees herself as the kind of player who is supposed to finish that work with titles. More than one. The Olympics came up too, and that gave the audience another look at how big she is thinking. She talked about 2028 as a real goal. Again, not in some dreamy way, but in a focused way. She has already had a taste of playing with Team USA and being in that environment, and it is obvious she wants more of it. But even then, the championship part with Indiana felt like the centerpiece. Everything else flowed around that. What made the championship declaration land so well is that it did not feel disconnected from the rest of what she had said. It was not some bold line thrown in for applause. It felt like the natural result of everything that came before it. The discipline from her dad, the habits she built, the lessons from teammates and captains, the seriousness about health, the understanding of pressure, the connection to Indiana. All of it pointed in one direction. She was not inventing a goal in public. She was describing the place all that work is supposed to lead. And that is probably why Jalen Rose responded to it the way he did. He basically treated it like the kind of answer that separates players who almost get there from players who actually intend to. Because at a certain point, greatness is not only about wanting to win. A lot of people want to win. It is about being willing to say exactly what standard you are chasing, and then live like that standard is real every day. Clark sounded like she is